Hey everybody, insert number 4, we're in the Book of Omni. Now, before we start into this one, seriously, I've just written in here, keep up with this game of pass the plates, because that's what it is. So, Omni passes them on, gets them from Jerem, so his father. So this has gone through descendancy so far. And he admits in verse 2 there that I myself am a wicked man. Although that and I fought for the Nephites, and that many of the Nephites are actually good people, I'm pretty bad at it. So I'm good at the fighting, not so good at the keeping the covenants and loving Jesus part. And there's a few of us out there that have said that before. I've said that before, and people have said, "Oh, you remember the church?" Like, yeah, but I'm not a good one. Don't look at me, It's really not a nice moment to say that, but we all have moments in life, right? So he says, I have not kept the statutes and commandments of the Lord as I ought to have done. And it came to pass away that we had the season of peace and war and everything. And I really ain't got much to tell you other than I fought a lot and I'm not so great at keeping the gospel. So I'm going to pass it on to my son Amaron. And Amaron in verse 4 is going to write the things which he writes. And he said that, wouldn't keep them from falling into the hands of the enemies, but the plates are safe. Going back to the promise that he made with Enos. Thank you, Enos. Blank moment. And then continues on, and he said, the Lord, verse 7, wherefore the Lord did visit them in great judgment, nevertheless he did spare the righteous, that they should not perish, and did deliver them at the hands of the enemy. So there's continual war going on. And in verse 8 it says, it came to pass that I passed the plates over to my brother Chemish. Now, verse 9 is interesting, and that's what I bring up. You keeping up so far with the game of pass the plates? Right. So, now I, Chemish, write that few things I write in the same book with my brother. So, it's now gone to a brother, not a son, gone to a brother. Maybe he didn't have any sons or daughters. Maybe he was too busy fighting, I don't know. I write in the same book with my brother, for behold, I saw what he last that he wrote, and he wrote it with his own hand, and he wrote it in the day that he delivered them unto me. And after this manner we keep the records, for it is according to the commandments of our fathers, and I make an end. That's it. That's all we know about Chemish. He got this from his brothers, got this from his brother, saw his brother write it in his own hand, says that that's the truth, and he's like, and that's how we kept the records, and I'm passing it on. The end. And then Abinadom comes on, the son of Chemish, and he writes a few things, and then Amaleki comes on. Now, Amaleki's the key person that we're really going to look at here. But I bring up verse 9 as in, is yours a one-verse life? Are you a blip in history? If we're going to read all the history books of the world, are you just going to come in and say, oh, yeah, I had some lunch, and I read a book, and passing it on now? Is that your life? Is yours a one-verse life? Speak and write, and your history, your legacy, write it down. There is more you have to offer than I got this off my brother and I saw him write in it, the end. There's probably a whole lot more Chemish had to offer us around. There probably wasn't space, or he just didn't get to it for whatever reason, and we don't know what it is. But just ensure that yours is more than a one-verse life, because there's a whole lot you got. A whole lot of experience you've been through, a whole lot of things you've felt and seen and know that will help others in your sphere of influence. So don't be a one-verse life person. Then you get to Amaleki, who's the son of Abinadom. So this is getting passed down now. So it's gone over to a brother, and then it's going down the chain. And Amaleki brings up Mosiah. And you're like, I know that name. So that's the timeline we're at now. And he talks to them about what happens under Mosiah and how Mosiah discovers the people of Zarahemla and the whole thing, and they all join together, and we read that in the coming weeks because we will be in Mosiah's story. In the meantime, he goes on to say, Amaleki was born in the days of Mosiah, and he's lived to see his death. Now Benjamin reigns. And King Benjamin we know a lot about because he gives that amazing sermon and calls his people to this. And so they've been doing, these mighty leaders have been doing a lot of work to turn the people around and to get them being good. And as you see there, it was mentioned also that those that weren't often were killed by war, the others were preserved. It's interesting. All right. So keep up in the game of pass the plates, absolutely. What can we learn from this? Is yours a one-verse life? I hope not. So one thing we see here throughout the Book of Mormon is the writers of the keeper not knowing the why of the plates, and it gets brought up again in the Words of Mormon. He says the thing too, it's just for a wise purpose, and we'll talk about that in the 5th insight. So it brings it up again, but we know why. So our questions of whys might not be answered immediately. So how can knowing that we don't need the why help us when following Jesus? Like, we don't need to know the why all the time. Sometimes we just got to trust. And actually not needing to know the why, that can really help. Especially for a brain like mine. I'm always like, why do I need to do that? I need a good reason. I don't blindly follow. I need a good reason. So if I can know that I actually don't need a why, that's a good idea, just because Jesus said it's the right thing, or it's the thing I need you to do, then I'll do it because I have that relationship with him. But that had to be formed. So if you're not there yet, that's all good. Keep working on it. But actually not, like, knowing that we don't actually need to have the why can be very helpful, can be very freeing. And we'll look at that also. It's Words of Mormon 1:7 that correlates in with. But Mosiah enters in verse 12 and leads into King Benjamin, who both have mighty influence for good. So what do we learn from King Benjamin about coming unto Christ? Wow. It's interesting. We know lots of things from King Benjamin about coming under Christ. He says in verse 25, wherefore I deliver up this place under, down there. He doesn't. But we know lots of things from King Benjamin. We're going to get to that. So keep that in mind. Didn't say that the best, sorry. What do we learn from King Benjamin about coming unto Christ? Whole lot of stuff, and we will see that. Right now we're still going to look at Omni, and he says that to offer your whole soul. So he says in verse 26 there, now my beloved brethren, I would that you should come unto Christ, who is the Holy One of Israel, who partake of his salvation and the power of his redemption. Yea, come unto him, and offer your whole souls as an offering unto him, and continue in fasting and praying, and endure to the end. And as the Lord liveth, you will be saved. So he's saying there, which is what King Benjamin talks about, which we see from Nephi, which we see from Jacob, which we see from so many people in the scriptures. If you are going to offer your whole soul back to Christ, you need to know him first. And that's what he's saying in 26. Come unto Christ, partake of his salvation, learn the power of his redemption, and get to know him. And then when he asks you to do something, you don't need the why, because you're like, oh, Jesus said it, Of course. So if we know Christ, if we first know Christ, is it easier to offer your whole soul back? Yes, it is. And will you offer your whole soul the entire time? Sometimes you're going to be more reticent on that and just be like, actually, I don't really know about that particular situation. I need to know more about that, and then we'll move forward. But of the one thing you can give back to Christ for all the things he's given you is your intention, your time, your kindness to others. There's just so much you can give back, and none of it is like easily bought. You can't just have money and give them money. And yes, we pay tithing. It's not the same thing. So like, if you really want to give back of all the goodness after you've repented and felt of that, and you're like, what can I do back? And you do something good, and then he blesses you again, and you're like, and you just want to keep doing it, and it will never be enough to repay what he's done for us. And yet we will continue to do that. That's your whole souls as an offering. Now, not every situation, you're going to jump up and go, yes, I'm all in on that one. Some of them take time. You know what? That's okay. It's your intention and your desire to. So there you go. Come unto Christ. That's what Omni teaches us. So Omni passes them on, eventually gets to Amaleki. Amaleki has a brother who goes with these ones that go off into them, and he's going to lie down. So he hands them on. He finishes it off and puts them in the safekeeping of King Benjamin, knowing that King Benjamin is a good man. So he trusts them. We don't get writings from King Benjamin, because we then switch to the large plates and we get the history, which King Benjamin comes in talking, and Mosiah. But next we're going to go talk about Words of Mormon and what he says about all of this. So it's some interesting little places in there. Game of Pass the Plates and live more than a one verse life. All right, I'll see you soon.